Okay, welcome to Chapter 14, Video 2. Uh, Video 1 was primarily about dealing with wastewater, especially human wastewater. Now we're going to move on to some of the other pollutions that we have to be concerned about being in our water, and several of those are heavy metals. Lead, arsenic, and mercury are three heavy metals that are often found in our water that we need to be very concerned about, and I'm going to tell you about each one of those specifically. Acids end up in our water, and we need to be careful about those, and then synthetic compounds such as pesticides, pharmaceuticals, and hormones, and we'll talk about those in a minute. So lead. Lead is not naturally occurring. The sources are old plumbing, petroleum exploration, gasoline. Here in the United States, gasoline is now unleaded, but in other countries they still add lead. It actually improves the performance of the car, but yet it also causes lead to be excreted to the air, and then it rains and it ends up in our water, so it's a bad thing. Lead causes damage to the brain, the nervous system, and the kidneys. It's especially of concern when we talk about fetuses and infants and small children. They're much more susceptible and sensitive to this because their nervous system is developing. It's not complete. So they can have very adverse effects when exposed. And small children, again, their bodies are little, so they're more likely to be affected. So, and it's also found in old paint, which old paint that has lead in it has a very sweet taste. So often kids will pick at the old peeling paint and actually eat it because it's sweet in taste, and that can make them sick or have learning disabilities, slow development, and issues with their nervous system and brain. Arsenic is naturally occurring in our rocks, and it can be found in our groundwater and drinking water, but when we mine and we introduce more arsenic through industrial processes like wood preservatives, it becomes higher in concentration in our water, and that's a problem because if we're digging up the ground, it naturally occurs in the ground, but if we're digging up the ground, we're kind of exposing more to it. Arsenic causes cancer of the skin, cancer of the lungs, cancer of the kidney, cancer of the bladder, and in high enough concentrations will cause death. Arsenic is known to kind of have an almondy flavor. So here's where arsenic has shown up in wells across the United States. And you can see some wells have quite a bit of arsenic. A lot of times those are around places with mining and stuff. Okay, mercury. Mercury is naturally occurring, but we are increasing the amount of mercury in our environment by burning, also, by the way, lead. One of the common culprits for lead is coal-burning power plants. Same with mercury. Coal-burning power plants are a big one. Incinerating garbage, any kinds of hazardous waste. Some of our medical supplies and dental supplies have mercury in them. Cement manufacturing and then petroleum exploration are all ways that mercury are finding its way into our water. Inorganic mercury, straight mercury, is not really harmful. It's relatively safe, but it is very quickly converted into methylmercury by bacteria, and methylmercury is the one that's highly toxic to humans and other organisms. Methylmercury, again, similar to lead, causes damage to the central nervous system, impairs coordination and sense of touch, taste, and sight. It's often found, and again, especially for children and embryos who are still developing, their nervous systems aren't even completely developed and hooked up. So if you have this happening with them, it's even going to be worse. We get most of our methylmercury exposure through eating fish and shellfish because it biomagnifies and bioaccumulates in our fish and shellfish. Shellfish get a lot of it because they consume it all, and it accumulates in their bodies. And then, of course, our higher level fish, our very top predatory fish, are usually loaded because it biomagnifies as it goes up the food web. Okay, so mercury production in the world, you can see that quite a few countries produce quite a bit of mercury. And that's, of course, never going to be a good thing. Acid deposition and acid mine drainage. So these are the acids that we have to worry about. Most of the acid and acid deposition is kind of really fancy name for acid rain, if you will. That's one part of it, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But most of the chemicals that are resulting in acids are sulfur dioxide and nitrogen dioxide, which are coming from coal-burning power plants. You also get nitrogen or nitrogen oxide, no, nitrous oxide, NO, from cars, and that's another big culprit for acid deposition. So we'll talk about sources and stuff in class and go over this so you're solid on it. There's basically two types of acid deposition: wet, which is your acid precipitation, acid rain, snow, sleet, hail, and then what we call dry acid deposition or dry deposition. And that's basically in the air around us. There's tiny bits of gas and particles that are acidic. They're sulfuric acid or nitric acid, and they're coming into contact with plants and your skin and that kind of thing, and they can cause damage. They don't even have to be in the form of acid rain to cause damage. pH less than 5 is lethal to most aquatic organisms, and acid rain is considered to be anything with a pH less than 5.6. So, by the way, our rain and our acid rain and stuff like that, it's naturally slightly acidic, and that's between like from 7 to 5.6 is kind of the natural acidity. That natural acidity occurs because of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide in water becomes carbonic acid. So if you have CO2 in naturally occurring, which we do because we respire it and stuff, you're going to have a tiny bit of carbonic acid in all water sources. So all water is basically slightly acidic unless there's a buffer of some kind in there for that. One way we can help to reduce acid deposition is through the use of scrubbers. In this case, this is a coal scrubber. Coal scrubbers are a little different. The gas is basically passes through limestone, and limestone is, of course, a great buffer, and will react with the sulfuric acid and the nitric acid in the gas coming out of your coal-burning power plants and stuff, and help to neutralize it and reduce its effect on the environment once it's released. Acid mine drainage is occurs because of either when subsurface mines are abandoned in flood, when rock that is otherwise buried in the ground is exposed to water, it will pick up zinc and copper. No, that's not true. It will pick up pyrite, which danks down and produces iron and hydrogen ions, and that finds its way to the surface and into our waterways, and it has a low pH. Low pH water increases the solubility of metals like zinc, copper, aluminum, and magnesium, and that's what gives it a acid deposition or acid mine drainage area. It's classic kind of orangey red color or yellow. Also, please note that things like aluminum, when they become more soluble, they'll be taken up by plants, and it's known, or it's a high concentration of aluminum in the brain is linked to Alzheimer's. So that's, of course, a concern. And this is a picture of acid mine drainage. Again, you can see that classic kind of reddy orange color here. And, of course, all the trees along the side of the bank are dead because the pH is so low. Okay, moving on to synthetic organic compounds. These are things coming out of industry, your point source industrial things, and a lot of your non-point source, your pesticides, pharmaceuticals, industrial cleaners, things like that. They are toxic. They cause genetic defects and interfere with growth and sexual development. So some of them are endocrine disruptors, some of them are can cause cancer and alter DNA, and some of them are just outright toxic and kill. So we're going to go through a few of these. Pesticides and They're inert ingredients. Pesticides we have to be very careful of, because we can have, like when we talked about agriculture, you can have a broad spectrum pesticide. That's a pesticide that will kill a wide variety of insects and organisms and can kill, you know, a lot of unintended victims. And if that's getting in your water, there's a lot of insects in your water. There's a lot of organisms that then could succumb to that. Other things, another pesticide like DDT, which is a very broad spectrum pesticide, it actually has a very long lifespan in the environment. It'll last 35 to 50 years in the environment, and it had a very weird side effect. It got into our water, and then it ended up accumulating in organisms, and our fish-eating birds, when they ate DDT, fish that had DDT, the DDT built up in their bodies, and it actually thinned their eggshells. When they went to sit on their eggs, the eggs would actually crack and crush, and the chick would die. So we had years where we had very few chicks being born to our fish-eating birds, things like hawks and eagles and osprey and pelicans and those kind of guys. So it was very detrimental. We banned it here in the United States, but there's still DDT. And some of the populations, like pelicans, are just starting to recover from the effects of DDT and starting to increase again. The inert ingredients are just the other ingredients that are in with the pesticide that you're spraying. They can have unsafe or harmful effects along with you know, the actual pesticide, and they can also, you know, go through chemical reactions with other things in the environment and become bad as well. So we have to be careful. Okay, pharmaceuticals and hormones. Your antibiotics, your reproductive hormones, your birth control pills, steroids, non-prescription drugs, your Tylenol, your Advil, all those things. Any of that stuff you don't metabolize, you're actually eliminating in your urine. So we are finding that there's more and more pharmaceutical drugs in our waterways. And we've found that even low concentrations of drugs that mimic estrogen, so a lot of our hormone drugs, some of the other things, there's actually a oh, what's it called? Now I can't remember. There is a, oh, I swear it starts with an A. There's a pesticide that we use. It's actually an herbicide. And it is now in water, and it's causing the feminization of frogs. And I cannot think of the name of it right at the moment. But these estrogen type mimicking hormones are now actually causing male fish to grow eggs in their testes. And then, like I said, we have other items that are mimicking estrogen and causing problems with frogs too. And of course, I cannot remember the name of it right now. It'll come to me. Okay, so contaminants found in some water. You can see here lots of steroids, lots of non-prescription drugs, antibiotics, reproductive hormones, all these kind of things. And this is kind of scary. This is what was found in 139 streams, so quite a bit. Military compounds, things like rocket fuel. These are in our ground because we manufacture them, test them, and dismantle rockets, and they're contaminating and leaching into our groundwater. They can also contaminate food and water. They affect their thyroid, reduce hormone production. That's kind of just a weird one to know. Okay, let's get through a couple more and we'll be done for the second video. Okay, industrial compounds. These are things we use in industry. There's a variety of them, but there's two that I think you really should know. And PCBs is the first one. It's used in plastic manufacturing and electrical transformer installation. It has been banned, or it's no longer used or manufactured in the United States. We use something that's slightly different because we knew it was so bad that, you know, you'll see a lot of times your plastic will say like PCB free and stuff like that. It does persist in the environment, and it can be lethal or can cause cancer. So it was pretty serious, especially when we were all drinking bottled water, and the bottled water had The bottles had PCBs. It was getting in our water. Okay, one last one and we were done for this second video. Okay, PBDEs, polybrominated diphenyl ethers. Can't talk today. These are flame retardants. They're found in fish, aquatic birds, and human breast milk. I've mentioned several times that a lot of you guys wore pajamas that were treated with flame retardant. They were treated with this stuff, and it literally seeped in through your body. But we didn't want you burning up in your crib, and we didn't know any better at the time. And it causes brain damage, especially in children, because again, smaller brains, less developed brains, still developing, that kind of thing, so they're highly affected. California and Washington State have banned the manufacture of several types of PBDEs, of these flame retardants, and we probably need to do some more. Okay, so that's going to be the end of video 2. I hope everything is going well, and I will see you tomorrow.